What is going on, everyone? This is Miles with Windows Central Gaming, and welcome to the 55th episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Today, I am stoked to be joined once again by my good pal and host of the Xbox Expansion Pass, Luke Lohr. Luke, how are you doing on this fine Saturday, my man?
I'm doing fantastic now that we got it to work. I apologize for technical difficulties. We tried everything. We prayed to the gods. We did a little circle around. We lit candles. And this is the best we got. Somehow I'm in widescreen. Never happened. Because I was coming in hot off another show, and I apologize to you, Miles. But I'm ecstatic to be here with you. I love Chaturdays. It's a staple in my week. So cheers to you and everybody in chat. Apologies for me being late, guys.
We got a great show lined up. Discord being just fantastic today. So for the people tuning in live, apologize for the slight delay, fashionably late. Sorry about that. But all that aside, stoked to have you on because, 2022 just keeps giving. It has been a stacked year full of huge gaming news, and this week has been no exception. So we're going to be diving into, PlayStation buying Bungie. We're going to be diving into MLB The Show hitting Xbox Game Pass yet again. We're going to be talking about even more acquisitions because acquisition season seems to be running for a couple years at this point, and so much more. But before we get into all of that, for all of the amazing folks listening, let the people know who you are and where they can find you.
Of course. So my name's Luke Lohr, aka the Insipid Ghost. I host the Xbox Expansion Pass, which is a weekly Xbox show dedicated to the goings-on of the gamerverse as it pertains to the Xbox ecosystem. So if there's news relevant to PlayStation, we'll talk about how it impacts Xbox. I often feature voice actors and developers, industry equality advocates on the show for interviews, and that is an absolute pleasure. That's my favorite thing to do, is to interview voices within the industry and developers, people who make the games that we enjoy so much, to find out how they practice their craft. So you can find that, again, on the Xbox Expansion Pass, all your podcast services, including YouTube, though it's just a static image. It's not video produced. But yeah, it'd mean the world if anybody would be willing to check it out, give it a go, and if it's your speed and you enjoy it, like it, share it, subscribe it, etc., etc. Yeah, that's me, man.
Beautiful. All right, Luke. So you've been on the show before, but something that I
Mhm.
started doing with some returning guests is this
Okay.
this little game that I want to play with you. So before we dive into the game itself, I want you to pick your 3 favorite video games and or franchises, the ones that are most important to Luke Lohr as a gamer.
Okay. Easy. The Arkham franchise,
Okay.
easily super close to my heart. I absolutely adore it. Halo is the next one. I love Halo in all forms across the entirety of the franchise. And I think the last one is a bit more up for debate here and there. That depends upon my mood. But for today, we'll say God of War. God of
Okay,
War
so we have
2018.
the Arkham series, we have Halo, and we have God of War 2018 specifically. All right, here's
Yeah.
where things get interesting, Luke.
All
So
right.
what I want you to
Okay.
do with this list of games that are very important, very near and dear to your heart, is I want you to pick one that is eliminated off the face of the earth. That one is gone from existence. And then I want you to pick another one that everyone else in the world gets to play except for you. What does that list look like?
Okay, if I'm eliminating one, I eliminate God of War because it's only one game versus the two franchises. Which is a shame because God of War, in my opinion, is the best game ever made. It's a high statement, and I mean that.
Whew, wow.
But
Okay. All right.
yeah, I do eliminate it because we all enjoy chasing perfection, and it's only one game. And the one that is eliminated, but for me, but everybody else gets to enjoy still.
Yeah, so it still is around. You just have to be on the sidelines and watch everyone else play
Ooh, that hurts.
it.
I will say Halo, that everybody else gets to enjoy, because there are many ways to enjoy Halo, and I think I could enjoy uh, the periphery of the storytelling and the art and a lot of that still. Whereas with the Arkham series, I don't think I could ever give up the feeling of that first time I was Batman or returning to Arkham, etc. So I will say that is going to be my answer today. But can I tell you what a blow it would be to lose Halo? Despite my camera being widescreen, you can't see Majority of my room is dedicated to Halo. From the Mega Blocks, Pelican behind me and the anti-aircraft gun to the 20 years poster behind me over there, and I love and adore Halo. But yeah, as long as everyone else gets to enjoy it, I'm cool with that.
Beautiful. And yeah, one of our big topics for today's show is going to be the current state of Halo. So again, I'm
Yeah,
very
nice.
excited to have you on for that particular section because you are one of the biggest Halo fans that I know.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
so that's interesting. Batman. So Batman is the one you would not give up playing yourself.
Yeah, yeah. There's something special about being a superhero. I love superhero games, best to worst. I do play them all. The power fantasy and the idea of being a hero is special to me, and games can do that for you. And Arkham did something special with Batman, and it allowed Insomniac to do something very special with Spider-Man. And here's hoping we get to see that again with Superman and several other superheroes coming forward. I know Wonder Woman's in dev right
Yeah.
now, and I know of one more that's in development, which I'm really excited for. And I hope that we see more superhero games. I love them. I love them.
Let's go. Beautiful. Thanks for being a
Yeah.
good sport. Appreciate you playing.
Yeah, dude.
Quick shout out to all the amazing people tuning in. I see familiar faces like you, Donnie, Silent Cypher, Mr. Joanna Dark. I see our
Nice.
good pal Jordan in the house. Appreciate you all tuning
Jordan.
in. We have so many great topics to get into. Um, First and foremost, some news that was pretty much buried this week because this week
Mhm.
was filled with big stories. And one of the first big stories of this week was the confirmation that MLB The Show
Mhm.
2022 is launching day and date in Xbox Game Pass yet again in April.
Mhm.
Obviously, we'll talk about the other stuff that buried this particular news, but it was really fascinating to see this major tentpole baseball franchise coming back to Xbox Game Pass.
Mhm.
It's a franchise that sells consistently well every year. It used to be a PlayStation exclusive. It's developed by a PlayStation studio, but clearly the publisher, which is MLB, sees value in bringing this series to Xbox Game Pass yet again. So I want to get your thoughts on why you think this franchise decided to come back and kind of what this demonstrates to other bigger publishers when it comes to the value proposition of Xbox Game Pass.
Well, I think it's coming back because clearly it was successful the first time out. Clearly, they saw a boost in user base, likely profits is the way that you would do that. You have to think that when it first came to Game Pass last year, it was the MLB that was kind of pushing that to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we
Yeah.
isolating our reach for this game that is top tier, best in class sports game, right? The fact that it's coming to Game Pass again day and date shows that it was a success on some level, and they want to continue reaping the benefits. We've also seen time and again that going on to Game Pass boosts sales of games, which felt counterintuitive to say 4 years ago when we first kind of were in the early stages of what Game Pass was. But now it certainly seems that we have plenty of evidence that it continues to raise the reach of games, raise the ability of games to bring in profits by way of microtransactions and such. But also, just if more people are talking about your game, more people are aware and willing to take the dive. Game Pass has that sweet, you get X amount, X percentage off if you purchase it. So if it's going to be leaving Game Pass, you purchase it ahead of time, you own the game for a cheaper price. And I think that's just an incentive for any third party publisher or publisher of a brand that they want to have more reach to go into Game Pass. So I think that's why you're seeing it happen. I think it's a great thing for baseball fans because the Xbox fan base didn't have a true simulation based baseball game. And MLB The Show, as I said, best in class. So why not? Win win.
Exactly. It's fascinating to kind of see the saga of MLB The Show unfold for Xbox fans because it was particularly interesting that the first time this series was ever coming to Xbox that it launched day and date in Xbox Game Pass, and that's a
Right.
huge way to kind of bolster the attach rate of this series, which has been associated to PlayStation. There are
Mhm.
people in the casual space who would buy PlayStations to play MLB The Show. So for a lot of us in the kind of, I guess, quote unquote hardcore gamer scene, we probably don't really care about MLB The Show all that much.
Mhm.
But Xbox seems to be setting this precedent that Xbox Game Pass is for your casual audience as well as
Mhm.
your hardcore audience. So titles like MLB The Show are coming. We've seen titles like FIFA, other big sports games coming to Xbox Game Pass. And now with the development of the Activision Blizzard news, there's going to be a
Mhm.
world where we have Call of Duty in Xbox Game Pass as well. So there's
Mhm.
going to be this future where Xbox Game Pass is going to cater to that, well, the cliche kind of gamer bro, the bro who
Mhm.
plays MLB The Show, Madden, and Call of Duty every year, and those are the only games they play. That kind of stereotypical, I think honestly probably kind of mythical gamer at this point, but
Yeah,
I think Xbox Game Pass really understands how to tap into that casual audience. So,
certainly.
what other gaps do you think Xbox Game Pass needs to fill before it truly becomes the ultimate subscription service? Because clearly they want the service to be for everyone. No matter what you play, they want to have something in Game Pass for you. So what are the
Mhm.
gaps right now with Game Pass?
Well, it certainly feels like the ultimate subscription service anyway right now, given that Bethesda and EA Access and so many others are arriving consistently in there, and they're showing a propensity to bring third party deals in. But the biggest gap they have in their catalog, not just their Game Pass catalog, but their Xbox Game Studio catalog, is a fighter. They do not have a fighter, and PlayStation has become synonymous with fighting games by way of purchasing Evo and having Street Fighter V be exclusive on their platform. I'm curious to know if that happens again for the inevitable Street Fighter 6. But a fighter is needed for the Microsoft franchises or to be represented, whether that's Killer Instinct or some sort of platform brawler. They certainly do need to have a fighting game in their pantheon of games, without a doubt. And so I think that's the biggest gap for sure. They've managed to fill the sports gap pretty well by way of having EA access and
Mhm.
whether that's ranging from UFC to FIFA and Madden, etc. But the war for content, not consoles, is showing that if we have a gap, we want to see that fan base is satiated later on. So I think you'll see a fighter come out in the next 3 years at some point. I know nothing, by the way. I'm not an insider on these things. To any of the listeners that don't know me, I am not
Insider
an insider.
confirms.
Yeah, I'm really good at making thumbnails with shocked faces, though. But no, I do not know. But I do think we'll see a fighter at some point because that's the game that's missing right now from their catalog.
Yeah,
What about you? What do you think they're missing?
I agree. I would love to see a fighting game. I mean, what frustrates me about the fighting game conversation is they have Killer Instinct, and they brought back Killer Instinct, and it kicked ass. Killer Instinct was so damn good, and they put out all
Mhm,
these amazing characters. They had a couple of great seasons, and then they just
mhm,
dropped it like it was hot and haven't touched it. And they've kind of talked publicly about trying to find a team that specializes in fighting games to kind of spearhead Killer Instinct. And I'm sure that's
mhm,
something they're working on. There have been rumblings from certain quote unquote insiders who say that, yeah, maybe Microsoft has already found the studio that's going to be working on Killer Instinct, and potentially that's already
mhm,
in the works.
mhm.
I can't say for sure. I haven't seen anything that confirms that, but that's some of the speculation right now. But oh my God, with all of
Okay.
the with
Qu- question. Real
yes.
talk. Do you think gamers outside of like content creators who specialize in Xbox, do you think people really want Killer Instinct? Like the masses, like Street Fighter is known to the masses. Mortal Kombat has done a great job at being known to the masses. Non-gamers know Mortal Kombat. Do you think Killer Instinct still has that reach?
It could get there. The problem with Killer Instinct is it wasn't like Mortal Kombat where there was a Mortal
Hmm.
Kombat every few years. They were just pumping out Mortal Kombat, and there was a period of time where most of those Mortal Kombats were bad, honestly.
Hmm. Yeah.
But when they came back with Mortal Kombat 9 and kind of reset the foundation, it was still in people's minds. And then they just put out a mission statement that said, hey, Mortal Kombat's really damn good again. And we're going to keep making
Hmm.
Mortal Kombat really good. And when Killer Instinct came back, it kind of set that tone. But the problem was it had been so long. It had been so many years since we had a Killer Instinct game that it didn't have that Mortal Kombat level of kind of engagement. So
Hmm.
if you start incorporating crossovers, I'll paint a picture for you of how they get this out and get people excited about it. We saw crossovers with Halo. We had the Arbiter in Killer
Hmm.
Instinct Season 2. Lean into that more. Lean into your
Yes.
big lean into Doomslayer. Get Doomslayer as a playable character in Killer Instinct. Leverage these
Hmm.
other massive franchises you have under the Xbox banner and make Killer Instinct kind of this Xbox fighting game. Not
Hmm.
just Killer Instinct, but this is a fighting game that represents all of the best of Xbox. And I think that would be a great way to pull people in because, I know like big fighting people like Maximilian love Killer Instinct and have been shouting from the rooftops to bring Killer Instinct back. They need to. They really need to because I totally agree. They don't have a fighting game. We don't have a platform fighter. We don't have a 2D fighter. We don't have any fighting games on the Xbox kind of first party side, and that's a big bummer. I think I saw some people in the chat mention JRPGs. I think that's another obvious gap that they have, and they've been doing a good job leaning into indies. I think with Game Pass, there's been some pretty cool indie standouts. Edge of Eternity is coming out, and that looks pretty interesting for people who want a decent JRPG. But I think their biggest gap is must-play family-oriented titles. We don't have a Mario Kart equivalent. We don't have a Mario Party equivalent. We don't even have like a 3D platformer equivalent, even though they're sitting on Banjo-Kazooie. Now they're going to be sitting on, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro. So there's a lot of potential there, but we haven't had anything worthwhile in that camp in a long time. We can look at Psychonauts 2. I think Psychonauts 2 is a fantastic 3D platformer. I don't think it's quite as like universal though. I think a lot of hardcore players love it, but I don't think your 5-year-old kid is going to pick up Psychonauts 2 and be able to have fun with it in the same way.
I agree. I think with Psychonauts 2, you have fantastic gameplay, but it's a bit too high concept for
it's heady. It's a heady story.
Yeah, and some of the imagery in that is disturbing, right? They even give you a warning if you don't like teeth, at the very beginning.
Oh, yeah, that's
of the game,
right. What's the name of the fear of teeth? They listed. I totally forget.
Something phobia. I know that.
Yeah, something phobia. Yeah.
But the idea that they do need something that is approachable, family based. They do need a fighter. They do have gaps in their catalog, and one thing that no one can critique Xbox Game Studios in its current state is there's not a lack of studios or talent. They've got the IP, they've got the studios. Well, the best part about studios is we tend to think of them as just studios, but those studios have multiple teams within them. A good example is Obsidian. They have the Grounded team, the Avowed team, and I think there's one more in there. A lot of them have multiple teams that need the studio philosophy but can work on multiple projects, and I think that's really important to do to avoid burnout. Insomniac taught PlayStation users this a lot when they had Ratchet and Clank as well as the Spider-Man games and now Wolverine. And when studios have more than just one franchise they work on, I think it helps foster creativity. And all signs point to that being a thing that Microsoft is embracing going forward. Let the studio culture enjoy. And it'll be really interesting a year and a half from now to watch how Activision's studios are allowed to explore this idea. You're not all going to be Call of Duty support. You're not all going to be isolated to this one franchise. And I think Toys for Bob is the easy one to say, but who knows what Treyarch wants to do that's not a military shooter? Who knows what Infinity Ward is going to work on after they put out Modern Warfare 2 this year, which is conjecture, but come on. What else do they want to do? And that's the exciting part for me. And I hope that all the major players, Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, if they do purchase and acquire things, they allow that creativity to foster because we only benefit, right?
Exactly.
$15 a month, play it all.
Let's go. Yeah, let's all get our cups and drink some of that Xbox Game Pass Kool-Aid. Because really what that allows these teams to do is there's not that financial fear when it comes to revisiting certain IP. Because the reason a lot of AAA game development has become arguably so stagnant in recent years is there's this huge financial risk every time you go back to the well and revisit a franchise. Has it been too long? Will this sell? Do people want it? How do we reinvent the formula without losing what people love about the originals? And people are too afraid to take risks a lot of the time, and therefore they put out this game that is on the safer side, but that doesn't pull in new fans, and that doesn't quite satiate longtime fans either. And now with the kind of financial flexibility of a service like Xbox Game Pass, these teams can experiment. They can really say, all right, how do we revisit something like Banjo-Kazooie or even Voodoo Vince? How do we revisit something like that and make it modern? Let's really dig into what this is. And if you give the team like kind of carte blanche to take that idea and run with it, chances are they're going to be way more excited about the project and probably whip up something that's a little more fun and a little more unexpected. And I think that's really cool. And I think, that's what excites me most right now about Xbox's future, is that flexibility to take those risks. And we know Microsoft has a ton of money. They're pulling in a ton of revenue from gaming, all their other divisions. And so it's exciting to me that they are willing to use that money to actually do something interesting, as opposed to, let's say, what Activision has been doing and saying, all right, well, we know Call of Duty makes money, so we're just going to do Call of Duty every single year. No matter what, we are putting out a Call of Duty. I don't care what it takes. I don't care how many people we need to put on Call of Duty. We're putting out a Call of Duty every year. And to me, that's not that interesting. And I feel like I have to imagine for the teams that are like in that environment, it's probably a lot of pressure and not a lot of creativity, because it's not about necessarily doing something fresh and exciting and new. It's about making sure that this Call of Duty comes out. And again, like you touched on, I think that's going to open up a lot of possibilities with Activision's kind of back catalog.
My day job, of course, is a teacher, and we see a lot of teacher burnout and people leaving the profession. And it mimics a lot of what my hobbies interests are, which is video games. And you see a lot of people that are pushed and forced into this one category, and they don't stick around in gaming for very long. And I think if you allow them to flex just a little bit, we see positivity. I mean, you mentioned Voodoo Vince a few moments ago, and I'll self-plug a bit. I had Clayton Kozlarek, the guy who worked on that game, right? Like, he made that game around the time that it was remastered. He came on XEP, and we talked about it, and open to the idea of a comeback for it. That's one of Phil's games as well. Is Voodoo Vince one that people would jump into? I don't know. But on a service like Game Pass, maybe you're not spending 60, 70 bucks seeing at Target, but on Game Pass, family friendly, boom, Voodoo Vince. That's the right delivery method. And when you have the financial support of a subscription service, it's not a cost to the user in the same way. I think that's the exact place for a game like Voodoo Vince 2 or whatever else is next for them. And I want to see teams be creative. You can have Call of Duty every year now by way of Warzone, by way of a few of the other live service models, and still let those teams breathe. Because when they couldn't breathe, I think that's why you heard some of these horror stories that were coming out of it, along with poor leadership and pipeline bottlenecking, which I think is a lot of the problems in a lot of industries, is where you bottleneck your pipelines. And COVID certainly did not help, when you had to move massive files for people to work on different builds of things. But that's no longer acceptable as we enter into 2022. Companies that want to launch AAA games should have a need to adapt to that work from home model in a way that they were allowed to be forgiven for in 2020 and perhaps 2021 as well. No longer is that a built-in excuse, because it's the reality they face if they want to keep making that product. And that's tough, right? Like, that's tough. That sounds so mean and cruel to say, but if you want to produce, you have to support your employees to be able to produce.
Exactly. And I've been very vocal about, what I expect from Microsoft post acquisition, because again, they're spending $70 billion to buy this company. So I have to hold them accountable to treating their employees and the employees of Activision Blizzard with better care than they've been given. So again, we'll have to wait to see how that all plays out, but that's my expectations there. And I want to, again, this is me just being a dreamer, if you will, but I hate hearing stories of people who go into the gaming industry with all the best intentions, all this passion, and just get completely chewed up and spit out. I worked in the film industry for a little bit. I went to school for audio production. Out of college, I was excited about the industry and wanted to work on movies, and so I did different internships, did a bunch of freelance work, and it was kind of miserable. Like the inconsistencies there, and the people willing to exploit your passions for exposure or absolutely garbage pay. It really it turned me off. After a couple of years of that, I completely got out of working in film. I had no interest. I was so disenfranchised with the entire process that it really made me not want to do it. So when I hear people share those experiences, for me, it just kind of there's extra weight to it because I've been there in some capacity. I know what that feels like to be excited, be passionate, and have someone to take advantage of that passion and exploit your work for their game. So
Yeah, it stinks. It stinks.
I'm gonna get to some super chats here and give a quick shout out to the 145 people hanging with us on this fine Saturday. If you are digging the show, hit that like button, share it out, feed the insatiable YouTube algorithm. Let's get to some super chats here. We got Yo Donnie, who says, "Who is the best metal band and why? Is it Nickelback?" Okay. So, are you a big
Well, this is
Nickelback
awkward.
fan? Are you a big? Just tell me. It's okay.
No, but I do like that one song from Spider-Man 1, Hero. That's the
A
one thing I like.
hero can save.
Yeah, I recently watched that film for reasons that should be obvious, and I like that song.
Not gonna stand here and wait. Yes, Nickelback.
Mhm.
I don't hate them. Like, I know it's the meme to absolutely hate them. I don't like them very much, but
Yep.
I would not say they're the best metal band. Do you listen to metal at all, Luke?
Not really, no. Like Linkin Park and is probably the closest I get to metal per
Yeah.
se. Oh, I mean, actually, I've been doing no. This isn't metal. Like 3 Days Grace and
Yeah, that's hard.
and
That's hard
Breaking
rock,
Benjamin.
bro.
Yeah, hard rock. I do metal.
Okay.
I'm afraid I can't jump into. Cheers to all of you that do though. It's not a diss. I just don't have the ear for it.
Yeah, it's I've gone deep down that rabbit hole, side tangent. It's just I won't get too into it, but there was a period of time where I was just getting deeper and heavier and darker and trying to find the heaviest, most disgusting music that I could possibly find. So
Nice.
I've been down there, been down there.
Probably when he worked in the film industry, right?
Yeah, exactly. Silent Cypher, appreciate you powering through the tech difficulties to still bring us this awesome show. Cheers, guys. Silent Cypher,
nice.
appreciate you hanging out. Appreciate you tuning in, showing your support. Mr. Joanna Dark says hello to Miles, the GOAT Dompier, and the awesome host of Fear on Tap. Luke, it is great to see you back on the show. Happy to hang with the community. Yeah, it's good.
Thanks, Joanna Dark.
Good to have Luke back because we got to talk about some Halo, Luke. Last time you were on, we talked about Halo, and you know, it's this ongoing saga of passion. As with any big franchise that people love, people are very passionate about what they expect, what they want, and what they don't want. And
Sure.
even since launch, there's been a lot of passionate conversations. Obviously, going into the release of Halo Infinite, there was a lot of controversy. There was a lot of opinions about the graphics, the gameplay, the open world design, blah, blah, you name it. Whatever there was to discuss, there was huge raging takes on either side there. And so now that the game is a few months out, I want to talk about kind of where you stand with the kind of current state of Halo Infinite. And before we get into a lot of the specifics, what's your Halo schedule looking like? Are you still jumping on with the squad every night and getting some rounds in?
Not every night, but several times a week. Absolutely, yes. I personally, I find it hard to play PvP at the end of a workday because I just get trounced. So I'm a morning player if I like to do PvP. But I think, yeah, I'm jumping in pretty regularly, 3-4 times a week for sure. Enjoying a lot of what they're doing to handle the idea that season 1 is so long. They're doing a lot of events, and I think that's a really smart way to balance out the idea that, okay, I'm not progressing my battle pass anymore, but I am progressing an event pass pretty regularly. There's Fractures, there's the they just did the Cyberpunk style one recently. I think we have a Shadow Ops or something like that coming up soon. Consistently having events is a really smart, fun way to feel like I'm contributing to something now that I'm maxed out on my battle pass. So I'm really pleased with that part of it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to have the events to fill some of those gaps because yeah, I went really hard on Halo Infinite when it first launched, and I kind of blasted through the battle pass. So it's been probably over a month since I was level 100 in that. So it's nice to have those events that keep me coming back. Obviously the game's fun, the game plays tight, it feels good, and for a lot of people that should be enough. But in the modern landscape and how we've been kind of programmed and how our little lizard brains have been programmed,
Hmm.
I want the rewards. It's not just about playing anymore. I gotta get something for playing, and so those
Sure.
events have been a nice way to kind of fill that gap. And I'll take a
Hmm.
week off, and then an event will kind of pull me back in, and I'll
Hmm.
find myself playing a couple nights a week.
Hmm.
Um, because yeah, when this game first came out, I was playing every single day, every
Hmm.
day for hours and hours, like absolutely loving it. And then in the last, I don't know, 3-4 weeks, I haven't really been jumping in. The
Sure.
events will, pull me in for a few rounds, but even those, I'm not like powering through all the levels of the events in the same way. And so
Hmm.
obviously season one's very long. Season one
Yeah.
is 6 months ahead of launch. They talked about each season being roughly 3 months. And
Hmm.
then they also told us that in January, we were supposed to get kind of a roadmap of what to expect from the rest of season one and into season two and things like that. And then last week, we got confirmation that they need more time to finalize the roadmap. So we're not going to get
Right.
the roadmap in January. Hopefully, we get that soon. And
Hmm.
then there's been other kind of compounding issues like Big Team Battle. Big Team Battle is
Sure.
my favorite mode, and I
Hmm.
haven't played it in weeks and weeks. I know they put out an
Hmm.
update, a patch this week, and I haven't honestly checked it out to see if it did improve it.
It's
But
feeling good.
okay,
It's feeling good.
that's good to hear because I was
Hmm.
so bummed because that was my favorite mode, and I wouldn't even queue to match make it because it was so
Right.
inconsistent, so many disconnects. And
Sure.
in contrast to the launch, which I feel Halo Infinite had the best big multiplayer launch in, I don't know, recent history at the very least. It was so
Hmm.
smooth. I was so
Yeah.
shocked that I wasn't getting disconnected constantly. I went the first week without having a single disconnect from a match, and that blew my mind. I didn't think that was possible in this landscape anymore. And they came out
Right.
and did it, and it seems like since then it's just deteriorated, which is odd. So outside of fixes to matchmaking, outside of some of the stuff we touched on previously,
Hmm.
what are your biggest hopes in terms of the cadence of content drops for seasons 2 and 3?
So, I think we need to take a step back for a couple reasons. There's two Halo Infinites, right? They run from the same client, but you have the single player and the multiplayer, and a lot of that is tied, and it matters very differently to different people which one should be prioritized, right? I think we should recognize several factors here. One, 20 million players at the gate is a great number for a
Hmm.
franchise that, in its last first person debut, I think really disappointed a lot of people. Halo 5 did a lot of things well, but it really let down in a lot of ways in terms of a franchise when it
Yeah.
stands next to peers in its genre. Um, and so to come back and have a uh, 20 million players check it out, try it out, and enjoy Halo again is fantastic. It's wonderful. I also think we need to applaud their cadence of communication. Better than
Yeah.
any other live service game right now, they are communicating, right? From the bottom of the barrel communication abilities like Avengers up through Bungie's Destiny, to Call of Duty, Vanguard, and Warzone, and they're doing a good job communicating. Here's what we are prioritizing. Here's what we are not. Fixes seem to be regular, identifying and letting people know, all right, here's what we're letting down on. We can see the data. This isn't working. Things like the shop. You know that the cost and the cosmetics in the shop were told from the on high, from the bean counters and whatnot. And I'm very confident, and I'm going to throw it. A lot of the developers were like pushing back, like that's not going to work. They needed data to show it. Then once they
Yes.
had the data, it's been out for X amount of time. This shop, these prices, no one's going to get into that. Change it. Once they had the data to show it, now changes are coming. And I think that's par for the course with AAA live service games as a service development. So that needs to be applauded and appreciated. They're adjusting things like Big Team Battle. That said, they do need to continue with these events in order to satiate a crowd that wants that lizard brain. We've been trained. We want to reward every time.
Hmm.
They've adapted the battle pass. The reason you blew through the battle pass, which you weren't intended to do, is because they adjusted it because everyone complained about it. And so I appreciate their listening to communication. Um, a lot of people will jump out. Well, it's not acceptable. It's been in development for 6 years. They clearly had some restarts on that, which is par for the course when you want to restart. And if you're trying to get it right on a reboot, I want them to get it right. And that campaign was a joy to play.
Hmm.
And I think we need to cheers to that. They created an engine in the Slipspace engine, which is meant to provide for years and will likely provide outside of Halo as well. Um, to answer your specific question, as I go very long winded here, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good.
Um, seasons 2 and 3 need to have a better sense of progression and reward. Cosmetics are continuously being updated for this game, and they seem to be adjusting things. It looks like we're going to have different models of Spartan, right, to try and complete and flesh things out on, from Reach all the way through the samurai styles. But the show should bring new models in. Maybe one of the seasons is spec'd around the show, or some events are spec'd around the show for show style cosmetics. And I think that's really cool. I think they learned a lot from Master Chief Collection. I think they learned a lot about what unlocks mean to players and how to let a battle pass be available to you. Players that jump in for season 2, if they've got more inviting things for people in season 2, you can still unlock the battle pass for season 1, and that's really cool. So I expect once season 2 hits, then we're truly seeing the intention of what they want Halo Infinite's multiplayer to be. I'm a bit forgiving because of all the frustrations, all the things that they've dealt with as 343, as well as COVID, and launching a system and then delaying a game for a year. They've shown they want Halo to succeed. They have shown us that. And it's in season 2 that I will be expecting the absolute best of the best. They've got the product out there. Now they need to refine it. Season 2 is where we're really going to need to see it happen. But the nice thing about this, Miles, is while they're figuring it out with season 1, they got really lucky that Call of Duty Vanguard is not what people wanted it to be. That Battlefield 2042 is not what people wanted it to be. They got really lucky that those two kind of heavy hitters that launched in that same window didn't hit hard. Crossfire X does not seem to be like it's going to be landing in a big space. I mean, Remedy's being slow to get codes out there. There's very little popular, like spotlight on that and publicity for that. So it looks like Halo's got the breathing room to get these fixes in, and people will come back. People will check it out. But 20 million, nothing to sneeze at. I'm really happy with it. There's things that we all want and deserve as player bases, and it looks like the developers want and deserve those things as well.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to kind of look at Halo Infinite as this platform. So when you look at the fundamentals, they did pretty much everything that they needed to do. They had a game that played well, they had a game that looked good, and they had a game that kind of reinvented a lot of what people love about Halo, while still introducing stuff that makes it feel modern and pulls in new players. So like you said, 20 million, that is a huge number of people playing Halo Infinite. You have to imagine the free-to-play multiplayer is a huge factor, and that is something that they haven't really done on that scale ever when it comes to like a humongous budget free-to-play game. And so obviously there were going to be some learning curves with monetization. Obviously they didn't, in my opinion, get monetization right out of the gate. We don't know what the conversations looked like behind the scenes, why they decided those things, but there were a lot of fair criticisms about the value and what that game expected from you financially and what it rewarded you for your investments into it. So like you said, they are addressing that, they are fixing that. I have to imagine that this extended season 1 is basically just like a 6-month research gathering mission. It's, the game is officially out, but season 1 to me feels like kind of just this long, super extended beta, if I'm being just kind of blunt about. And that's not to downplay what the full product was. I didn't have a huge amount of complaints, but that being said, it's clear to me that season 1 has just been about figuring out the habits of their players and how to incorporate that in future seasons. That being said, I'm hoping with seasons 2 and 3, outside of Co-op and Forge, which fingers crossed that those are still on track for seasons 2 and 3. We'll see. They have kind of alluded to the idea of maybe that not happening in subtle ways, but I really want to see more consistent maps. I think that is my biggest frustration right now, is that season 1 is 6 months. And at this point, I'm kind of getting the feeling that we might go 6 months without a new map, which for a quote unquote games as a service title and a title that is driven by engagement, that's kind of wild. Because I knew the package of maps at launch was going to be tight and small, but I was kind of expecting that they were doing that so they could have every month or every other month a map drop, and that map drop would kind of pull people back in and get people excited, which I think is kind of the right approach to keeping that engagement up and keeping me coming back. Because if you put a new map in, I'm going to play it. Like, the events are cool and the cosmetics are cool, but I don't want to only play the game just to get those cosmetics, and then as soon as that event is gone, be like, I'm tired of these maps. And that's kind of what I've been doing, is I'll play for the events, and then I won't play until there's another event again. So I really think they need to increase the cadence of maps. Even if you're not dropping a ton of modes, we really need some headliner every other month at the very least.
So in the time since it launched, they launched it a little bit early after kind of doing the beta stuff, right? And then the team put the game out there, and then they went on holiday, which I would imagine deserved, right? I mean,
Yes,
they really
well
piled.
deserved. Cannot
Right.
fault them for taking time off.
Right. And in returning for January, they had big team battles to fix. They had to clean up probably bugs and issues from all the data they gathered over holiday when they just got slammed with server pings. I think now that we're in early February, you're correct. Now that the focus is probably calmed down for that team, they've been able to catch their breath and recover
Mm-hmm.
mentally, emotionally. I think you should see a map or two here and there. I mean, we've seen Fiesta, which I mean that's an old mode, but into their game,
Mm-hmm.
attrition was a new mode. Seems really cool. Fixing big team battle was a big thing they needed to do. Yeah, now that some of these things have been squashed, it's time to start rotating in a new map here and there, to maybe bring a new weapon or two in, or a vehicle in, and
Yeah.
they've got a sandbox to play in. It's time to start letting us play in it in a different way, for sure. And so I think you're correct. They do need to have some stuff. I just think that since it launched, there are a lot of things we can point to as to why we didn't get it, but that is going away. Like, you don't get another holiday. You know what I mean? Like, those
Yes.
things are, yeah, you're done now with that. So yeah, a good point and well made, I think.
Yeah, again, like a lot of people were very angry and vocal shortly after launch, and I knew that the team basically was shipping this game, spending a week to make sure it was okay, and then taking some well-deserved time off. So I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to scream at them over the holiday break to fix Halo Infinite or give me this or that. But again, now that we are, they're back from holidays, they've had a good month to settle in. Now I think
Mm-hmm.
it's worthwhile to kind of start looking at the Halo package and saying,
Mm-hmm.
all right, what does the future look like, and what is the cadence that we can expect from this game? Because again,
Well, you
this
talked about multiplayer. Where single player is another factor of this.
yeah.
I cut you
Yeah,
off.
we
Sorry.
don't know when the single player like campaign drops. We don't know what to expect for that. I'm not going to spoil the ending for people who haven't played it, but they clearly and obviously set up more campaign. Like, it's not even
Mm-hmm.
subtle. The fact that, like, okay, we're going to go do this, and that's the end of the game, and you're like, okay, cool. Obviously, there's
Mm-hmm.
more campaign coming. We don't know what that cadence looks like. Is it going to be Destiny, where once a year we have a big seasonal drop that's focused on some new big baddie, or is it going to be longer? Are we waiting years and years for the next one? So again, a lot of fans were hopeful for that roadmap in January, and hopefully when that does come out, they have a lot of good details. And kind of my main hope with this is that it kind of satiates the very vocal people who are unhappy, because there's a group of people very unhappy with Halo Infinite right now, and there, I mean, to be frank, there's going to be a group of people who are probably always unhappy with Halo Infinite, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these people are hardcore fans, and some of their criticisms, when presented in a nice way,
Mm-hmm.
are valid. There's definitely some valid criticisms of how they've been handling this games as a service approach, and I want to believe that moving forward they've learned some lessons, and we'll see a more consistent Halo Infinite on the single player and multiplayer side moving forward, or campaign side, because you better give me co-op. I swear to God, if that
Mm-hmm.
gets delayed again, ooh, I'm gonna,
Mm-hmm.
again, not to be an entitled gamer, but
Well, there are certain promises they made, certain ones that are understandable they couldn't fulfill, certain ones that are not understandable, and timelines can be difficult. And I think we can be forgiving as a community for sure, because Halo, like Star Wars for me, all Star Wars is good Star Wars in my mind. There's a tier system, but I love it all. I will always love Halo, right? If I'm willing to play the twin stick shooters, like I love Halo. Um, but there are some things that they need to address, and they know they need to address it. And I appreciate their communication about it. They're saying,
yes,
"Hey, this is what we're working on. This is what we need to work on. This is still a top priority. This is not as much a priority, but we know we need to do it." And to me, 343. in this, I don't know that it's new, but it's publicly new. This new kind of approach they've made has been what I think all games as a service model communication should be.
Yeah.
Here's our priority list. This is what we're working on. This we were working on. It's not working. What we're trying is not going well, so it's being moved to this. Um, that is good, right? That is better than no communication. I'm part of another community that really loves a live service game that's not beloved, and their communication is trash. It's terrible. It's frustrating. And what happens? People turn on them. I think if 343 can continue to speak to the masses, then the masses will be understanding. There will always be people who are vocally dissident and frustrated, and they have every right to be frustrated. But at the end of the day, if you're not playing it, that's it. Like, there are other games. Go play other games and come back when you're ready. And no one should feel bad about that, by the way. Like, you were saying, you're not logging into Halo as much, and I know you don't feel this, but like, no one should feel bad if it's
Yeah.
not speaking to you at the moment. There's a lot to play.
There's a lot to play right now, and yeah, to 343 Industries' credit, to end this on a positive note here, is they've done an excellent job communicating, and across the board, really, Xbox teams, Sea of Thieves in particular, I think set the expectation for these games as a service titles with Xbox first party, because they were incredibly vocal. And what I love about that is even if it's not good news, communicating that is still important, because if you're going to tell people the reason why something isn't happening, that makes it so they can't fill in the gaps. Because if something bad happens and you don't say anything, people are going to fill in those gaps as to, oh man, maybe this happened, and they're going to kind of whittle out these conspiracies and fill in the narrative and make it as negative as they want it to be. But 343 Industries, again, it has been willing to have those hard conversations with its community and say, hey, sorry, we know you want this, we get that you want this, we just can't do it in the timeline that we would like. And so I've respected that. Again, like, as a leader of a company and a team like that, it's important to be able to come out and say something that's going to make people upset. And again, I respect that, because too often we eliminate the entire human element of making video games. We think that video game development is this machine, all these cogs in a machine, and they are there for the sole purpose to make a game for me, to make me happy. And sure, on some level, yeah, that's a business is a machine designed to make money, and by making people happy, you can make money. But also, there are a bunch of people who are just getting blasted online every single day by people who are mad about Halo. And I don't think that's the right approach. I think it's perfectly healthy to have conversations about what frustrates you and what you want to see. But we got to remember that there are human beings involved here, and it doesn't have to be this really aggressive, ugly conversation.
That's a conversation you and I have had publicly and privately, often across a number of different shows and everything, is forgetting that people make these things and they make them for enjoyment. And there is a business side, of course, but too often, because of anonymity on the internet, we are so quick to critique as opposed to celebrate. I had a wonderful conversation with Ty Guy Travis from IGN, which is going on the next XEP. We talked about Dying Light towards the end, and he's further along than I am. And the first thing we found ourselves doing is saying what we didn't like about it, but we both love Dying Light 2. It's fantastic. It's so much fun. There's so much to enjoy in it. And it's just a habit that I think as gamers and people with we can 140 characters shoot this message out. We tend to say, all right, I'm not liking this thing, as opposed to, the voice acting's really good here. The vistas are beautiful. It's really fun to parkour. I could wax poetic about how much fun the grapple hook in Halo Infinite is, right? Like, give me Titanfall mode where it just recharges perfectly in multiplayer.
Yeah, please, that is my dream. A grapple hook just as a permanent starting item in Halo Infinite. Oh, ooh.
Let me ruin your future of Halo. Larger map, maybe a BTB map or something, maybe a little more open, where they drop mantises in, and you have permanent grapple hooks as a thing. You're playing Titanfall 3, baby.
Let's go.
There
baby.
you go.
Let's do it.
Limited time mode partnered with Respawn. Let's do it. That'd be so much fun.
Oh, come on. And I like the grapple hook and the ability to throw plasma canisters in Halo Infinite are two things that immediately jumped up to like the most fun mechanics in any video game ever. They never got boring ever.
Right there. Now, here's one. I'm doing it now. All these things I like. And that's one. I don't know how to get a perfect kill with a commando, That's my biggest critique. There's an achievement for it, and I can't do it, Miles.
Oh,
I've
come
done
on.
tried.
You gotta,
I
you
haven't
got, you
done
gotta
it.
feather that trigger, dude. You gotta just
It's
kiss
a
it. Just kiss it.
just a little
Pa,
touch,
pa, pa,
touch.
pa, pa,
Okay.
pa. Yeah, just if you fully
Okay.
automatic, it kicks up. And if you want to do that, the pro strat is start at the center of their chest and just hold the
Okay.
trigger. And as it bounces up, like the fourth shot will be a headshot and they'll die. So that is,
Okay.
you either feather it on their head exclusively, or you aim at their chest, the center of their chest, and hold the trigger and just wait for the recoil to bounce up to their head. That is,
Okay.
at first I did not get the commando. I was really frustrated. I was like, this thing is garbage compared to the VR. It's garbage
Mhm.
compared to the pistol. It's garbage compared to the assault rifle. Why on earth would anybody use it? And then once it hit, oh, you're taking people down fast. So
Really?
fast.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the meta of the commando.
So I need to, what is the phrase? Get good?
Yes, I
will
would
get
recommend
good.
getting good. That's your main problem right now. Is you're
thank
really
you.
bad at Halo, and that's it. Thank you. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Good. One, two O's or just a U? for
You,
good?
yes,
Okay, got
absolutely.
it.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Underlined. Here we are. There we go.
All right. So speaking of Halo, speaking of Halo, there's been a small development involving the creators of Halo this week. And I feel like we got to touch on that a little bit because there's some interesting tidbits and a little anecdotal stuff we can talk about. But the long and short of it is that PlayStation, of all people, has announced that they are acquiring Bungie for $3.6 billion. So we are
PlayStation an own Master Chief now?
So yeah, unfortunately, the reality is now PlayStation owns Halo, and that is the ultimate counterattack to Xbox. Rest in peace, Halo Infinite. All future content for Halo Infinite stop support on Xbox now. So
Done. It's
sorry,
done.
had a good run, good couple months, but that's the reality. But in all seriousness,
a good response.
in all seriousness, this news was pretty big. Quite frankly, a little surprising. So before we talk about all the different elements of this and all the wrinkles that have happened since the initial announcement, I got to know what your initial gut response was when you saw the headlines on Twitter. What were your thoughts?
How weird is it, Miles, that I couldn't care one way or the other? And it's because we're like 2 weeks removed from this $70 billion Activision deal. And I was like, oh, Bungie's okay, cool.
Okay.
And it was so weird. That's huge news. It didn't even blip my radar. I was like, oh, Sony bought them, cool. And then you start generating some questions. All right, what does this mean for Destiny? What does this mean for exclusive content? And then you read the breakdowns, and I was really high on the deal. First impressions, I didn't do much for him. And as I read about it, I was like, this looks like a great deal for Bungie and a great deal for gamers based on some of the specifics. And I'll wait till you ask more questions to go further there. But it's how strange that 2 weeks removed, 3.6 billion didn't feel like much, and it didn't feel like it was a big deal because of what just happened. And it is a big deal, and it's really great. And there's a lot of cool things to talk about and ways to break it down. And I'll let you spearhead that conversation. But I just didn't get phased because I was so desensitized. 70 billion for Activision, 3.6 for Bungie.
Yeah, and it's when we were talking about the Bethesda acquisition initially, we were flabbergasted by $7.5 billion. Like that amount, right. I remember seeing that number and being like, I can't even comprehend that much money. I can't wrap my mind around having that much money. And now, like you said, Activision comes around, Microsoft is throwing around $69 billion like it's it's nothing. And cash. Yeah, and then
cash deal.
And then this news comes around, and it's by comparison a much smaller amount of money.
Right.
That being said, it was, there's been so much speculation about who might buy who and who's next on the acquisition target list, all that stuff.
Sure.
It was honestly a little surprising for me to see PlayStation announce this deal, considering that there had been talks with Xbox. Bungie reportedly had approached Xbox about being acquired. And the talks were that Xbox said, no, that's too much money. We're not interested in that deal. So that to me was really interesting. So when that kind of broke that Xbox wasn't interested, I knew that Bungie was kind of shopping around. But I didn't really expect PlayStation to be the one to swoop in and say, all right, let's do this. But the more I think about it, the more I look at the legacy of Bungie, and it really started to make sense for me because Bungie is huge on PlayStation, and PlayStation leveraged the launch of Bungie 1 and 2 with a bunch of exclusive content that, kind of solidified the player base on that platform. So we got to talk about the specifics of what this deal looks like, because when this news broke, a lot of people were like, oh, what? Bungie, or yeah, Destiny's exclusive to PlayStation now. That's crazy. And you saw a lot of takes like that immediately explode. But as people read into it and figures like Jim Ryan came out, it became very clear that this was not a traditional video game acquisition. This wasn't PlayStation buying Bungie and dictating where their games go. This was PlayStation buying Bungie and Bungie remaining as a multi-platform independent publisher under the PlayStation banner. So they were very vocal about what exclusivity would look like. There are on the Q&A on their website, they talk about their future games coming to rival consoles. They're not just saying multi-platform, because people were speculating that multi-platform meant, okay, yeah, PlayStation and PC. No, they are straight up saying rival consoles. Their future games will come to rival consoles. So was it shocking to you to kind of see PlayStation acquire this team and then learn that Bungie would make multi-platform games?
I think at first, yes, it was a little bit surprising to know that they were willing to publish on other platforms. And then when you take a step back and let emotions kind of subside, you realize that Microsoft's been publishing on other platforms. You can look at Ori showing up on Nintendo platforms. You see the MLB The Show deal going to Nintendo Switch. And you realize that this is indeed the future. The war is for content, not consoles. And I've seen that phrase show up in a number of different journalists' articles of late, content, not consoles, and it makes perfect sense. I was surprised by, I want to say it was Jez Corden from Windows, that said Xbox was approached by Bungie for purchasing, and they said it's too expensive. That surprised me.
Yeah.
But I wonder if given the money they've been spending and the investment they're putting into Halo, transmedia would have been expensive. The idea of, okay, if the reason I think Sony wants Bungie is to gain the live service knowledge that Bungie brings, as well as the ability to create Bungie IP Destiny content in the film or TV show industry. And that is a war for content. You see Netflix and Amazon and Disney Plus and anyone else in that space competing with exclusive shows. They want their properties to be where I haven't canceled Netflix because of The Witcher, right?
Yeah.
I'm on Disney Plus because of because of The Mandalorian. I'm on, all of these different places for X or Y shows, right? Sony wants Destiny in their pocket. It makes them more approachable and viable. And it's the verbiage was really fascinating because if anybody under a rock has not figured out or realized this was not a response to Activision, this has been a 6-month plus deal that they've been working on, and the verbiage very specifically says they want to publish on other places because that's what's going to be best for their IP. And we are within our lifetime, Miles, approaching a time where hardware is not a thing, right? Where it's a login. And if Sea of Thieves ever comes to PlayStation, and it might, you're going to be logging into your Xbox account. If you want to play Destiny with the latest content, you might be on your PC logging into your PSN, or on your Xbox Series, whatever, logging into your PSN. That future is now on the table in a way that it wasn't a year ago. And for anyone that's still in doubt of that, I recognize and appreciate the people in doubt. And you might think it's weird to say, but last week Microsoft bought Activision. Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, who made their names on PlayStation, are now Xbox properties. Call of Duty is now an Xbox Game Studios, or will be an Xbox Game Studios thing. Bethesda is Xbox Game Studios. Sony now owns the creators of Master Chief. And we're publishing MLB The Show on Nintendo platforms now. These things the industry is shifting in a way that it has not shifted since Sega moved third party. And even then, that wasn't nearly as big as what we're seeing now. So we have to open our minds to the possibilities and recognize why Sony would want this. They're launching a Spartacus service that is meant to rival Game Pass. We don't know the details of it, but we know they want to have 10 live service games by 2026.
Hmm.
Who better to bring in than the best in class shooting mechanics of Destiny, among the best in class of live service infrastructure and delivery of content? You know, you have Fortnite up there as well. Storytelling and fan service and fan communication, I don't think are Bungie's strengths. They've got a lot of knowledge, and that knowledge is now going to be fed to Sony game studios, all the while Bungie can make games they want to make and publish them where they want to publish. Seems like a good thing, I think.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because there were so many people who said that PlayStation, if they ever bought somebody, you could guarantee that those games would 100% be exclusive to PlayStation. And this deal proves that that is not the case. This deal
Mm-hmm.
proves that PlayStation is a lot more nimble and a lot more business savvy than a lot of people give them credit for. Because I've seen
Mm-hmm.
so many people talk about, PlayStation being out of touch, PlayStation unwilling to change their business model, PlayStation still relying entirely on console sales. And while initially that was a big portion of their business, like launching the PS5, having exclusives to sell the console, they understand what the future looks like, and they understand
Mm-hmm.
that they have to have games as a service titles to fill some of these gaps. They are going to
Mm-hmm.
keep continuing to make their God of Wars, their Horizon Forbidden West, those big critically acclaimed experiences that people know and love, but they need revenue to fill those gaps. You can't spend
Mm-hmm.
5 years spending hundreds of millions of dollars making a game and having nothing to fill the gaps. So again, what this is about, and that people really downplay this acquisition because they say, what does PlayStation get here? What does PlayStation get with this deal? Not only do they get the live service expertise of Bungie and the power of Destiny as like this kind of
Mm-hmm.
brand association, but they get a constant stream of live service revenue from Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
So while they are working to build up their games as a service offerings and build and basically develop games, they are getting a constant revenue stream, and that cannot be undervalued right now. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why deals like Minecraft, that is kind of Microsoft's like constant stream of revenue. They are constantly
Mm-hmm.
getting money from that across all platforms. And so PlayStation understood that they needed something like that to fill the gaps. And Bungie specifically, if you know their history, they have been part of somebody and then got their independence, and part of somebody and got their independence. So for them to join another team, the stipulation had to be that they maintain their independence. We want to
Mm-hmm.
be a publisher who has the rights to publish multi-platform games and you heard it from Jim Ryan unequivocally. There will be
Mm-hmm.
no exceptions where they are forced to make a PlayStation exclusive. That's the
Mm-hmm.
reality. I'm still seeing people say that, oh, yeah, down the road, it's going to change. I guarantee you there is legal wording in their contract that would forbid
Mm-hmm.
that from ever happening. Not saying that they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be inclined to maybe make a PlayStation exclusive at some point, but
Mm-hmm.
they will never legally be forced to make a PlayStation exclusive. Um,
Right.
and that's what's
And
really interesting about this whole deal is the fact that Bungie has this legacy of fighting for their independence, and then they are acquired yet again.
And there's nothing to say that Spartacus subscribers won't get special rewards the same way Game Pass subscribers get perks.
Mhm.
There's nothing to say that that won't happen. Um, my frenemy, Mr. Badbit, who I just hate that I'm giving him a
Give
shout
us a
out right
shout out,
now.
yeah, Mr. Bad
God,
Bit with the bad Mr.
chill.
Bad Takes, as I call him. But
He's just the worst. But he postulated the idea on his show and privately. The idea Sony is becoming more open minded to a lot of things. They're launching onto PC now and seeing the dividends paid. And so, anyone that's still fighting that future, I think you're fighting in futility. No chat room warrior need die on that hill. But he postulated the idea that Sony might be willing to, as Xbox is showing a willingness to, give people a taste on other platforms. You play Ori on your Nintendo Switch. We've got more of that kind of stuff over on our platform. If The Last of Us's multiplayer element ever launches on PC or even into a Game Pass like service, oh yeah, you're suddenly playing a this is the example is the multiplayer of Uncharted or Last of Us. Well, we've got the Uncharted's and the Last of Us over on our services, and I think that's not something in the near future, but in the far future, why wouldn't Sony publish over on Xbox to give people a taste and say, hey, we've got more over here? We've seen streaming services experiment with that. We've seen shows do that. I don't know why we wouldn't see different types of deals set up for that purpose. Try our stuff, check it out. Xbox is experimenting and has experimented with that. Um, that's the neat part about content wars, not console wars, but content wars, is the possibilities are suddenly far more open than they've ever been, and I'm excited by that. And Bungie
Yeah.
is a really cool studio to experiment with, right? Another thing that occurs to me, and I don't know if I'm speaking purely out of ignorance on this, but in acquiring people that are publishing on other platforms, you gain insight into their process, right? You gain insight, like once they have Activision's books and whatnot, they can look at how Activision and Sony work together. Are there things Sony does well that we need to emulate on the back end? Are there things they don't do well that people don't like on the back end? I don't know if that's too in the weeds or too, dartboard with strings in between them. But I think that's cool as they gain insight onto each other to learn more about customer engagement and such.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of this is basically understanding how to handle multi-platform releases, because obviously Bungie and Destiny, they're multi-platform, their updates come out at the same time across multiple platforms, and I think that experience and that knowledge will be huge as PlayStation unquestionably moves in that direction. I don't,
Right.
you can have your opinion, you can have your belief, but to me, there's no world where we don't start seeing multi-platform PlayStation releases, whether it's
Right.
on PlayStation and PC day and date, especially on the multiplayer side. I think that is guaranteed. I don't see a world where that doesn't happen. I know some people are still fighting that, saying, yeah, PlayStation still is going to have console exclusives first, and then it'll come to PC. PlayStation is trying to make money. PlayStation
Yeah.
understands how to make money. They are putting their games on PC and making money. So they are going to continue to put their games on PC. And if you can basically get that word of mouth, as we've seen with Forza Horizon, Halo Infinite, these games that are huge, have huge player numbers, dominate
Mhm.
headlines, dominate the conversations, you can't ignore that. And PlayStation will not ignore that.
You're seeing games that launch day and date into Game Pass chart on best-selling Steam,
Yeah.
right? And that is proof positive that the system works. God of War lit Steam alive when it hit the PC space, and
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
there's so much evidence to show that it doesn't hurt your brand. It helps it. And I don't know why anyone would still say, "No, we want you to isolate yourself onto." I think PS5s are around 15 million right now. No, we want to make a game just for 15 million people when you could make it for 15 million consoles and growing, as well as the entire PC space. And we know, and we have learned, and I have in a very amateur way learned that in developing for PC, you're developing scalable games where the demands of processing and such can scale in a much different way than I think I understood when I was just a console peasant and pleb,
Yes.
right?
Shout
I'm
out to
I'm
my fellow console heathens.
That's right. The question of, will Xbox One hold back Xbox Series games? There's an element of truth to that, sure, but it's far less impactful than I thought. I think, and I don't think we're in a future where Paul, I might be getting into the weeds here, but going on to PC seems to be a good thing for development. At
Yes.
least from the outside looking in. And again, Miles, I am not a PC guy. I'm not an engineer, but on the outside looking in, it seems to me like it's a good thing.
Yeah, you heard early on one of the main reasons the Xbox 360 and even the original Xbox took off in the way they did when it comes to developers jumping on board is it was similar to PC. So it was way easier for them to develop on Xbox than it was for PS2. PlayStation 2 and 3 historically have had very convoluted architectures, but the brand was so powerful that people just had to suck it up and do it. So as
Mhm.
360 became more popular, you started seeing a lot of these big third-party exclusives because it was just so much easier to develop for Xbox and then port that to PC because they were using
Mhm.
essentially the same architecture. So it is really interesting to see kind of what the future looks like. And more developers are going to lean into stuff that is scalable. Scalability across mobile, across console, across PC is going to be more important than anything else. And if you have a ecosystem and a platform that's fosters that and basically promotes that, you're going to get
Mhm.
way more developers interested in working with you, as opposed to saying, like, one of PlayStation's biggest problems is you had to develop exclusively for the PlayStation hardware first and then
Mhm.
figure out how the hell to get it anywhere else. One of the primary reasons Bloodborne doesn't exist anywhere and Bloodborne doesn't have any sort of enhancements is because it was made on PlayStation, and Lord knows if they've lost the source code or what the situation is there, but people have been screaming for Bloodborne on PC and screaming for Bloodborne enhancements, and we don't have them. And it's probably because of how that game was originally designed, and it was probably not very easy to, port that to other infrastructures. And it's probably gonna be a situation where they got to go into the back end and completely redo everything to be able to port that. And so, PC is scalable. Using a PC infrastructure is way easier, and developers appreciate you if you're going to give that to them.
Nice.
All right, got to give a quick shout out to the 192 people rocking with us on this beautiful Saturday. If you are digging the show, hit the like button, share it out, all that great stuff. We got to talk about Sony overpaying, because since this news and since it's come out that basically Microsoft was offered this deal for less, industry analysts like Michael Pachter have basically come out and said that Sony vastly overpaid out of desperation. So there's been a lot of kind of passionate takes about that. And we've seen people echo that on Twitter saying, I don't understand what Bungie gets here. So what was my question here? Sorry. So how do comments
Did
like
Sony overpay?
Yeah, how do comments like this sit with you? Do you think this was a situation where they did overpay? And we got to talk about the what was it, 1.2 or 1.6 billion that was set aside to keep employees. It was basically
1.2.
An incentive to keep employees on board. So I want to know your overall thoughts on that, and whether or not Sony quote unquote overpaid, and whether you think the 1.2 billion to keep them is weird.
It will sound strange for me to, in the same breath, say that I am not an analyst, and so that I don't bring expertise to that. But in the same breath, I'm also going to say that Michael Pachter's opinions have not been relevant or helpful for years. Right? He's been off the mark for a number of times, and he is long since past his relevancy.
He's inflammatory for the sake of being inflammatory.
Correct. And so I don't put stock in
Not to throw
him.
shade, but
Right, exactly. And that's, he's trying to stay relevant by being inflammatory, but he's not relevant. And I recognize there's a hypocrisy there, because I am not an analyst. I teach English to middle schoolers, and I acknowledge that too, right? I don't know if the idea of overpaying is something that Sony truly cares about in this sense. PlayStation is making buku money right now. Sony is in debt.
yes.
PlayStation's making bank right now, and in what I see happening in the future, if they're not purchased by Apple or partnered up with Amazon at some point in the future, in all likelihood, what's going to happen is that, like Satya Nadella now has Phil next to him at the table, they're going to be pulling Herman Hulst or Jim Ryan up next to the table and saying, hey, your brand's making us bank money.
Yes.
What are we going to do with it? You know? And I don't think they overpaid for Bungie, because what they've done now is they've opened themselves up to the possibility of using an IP that has the potential to be bigger than Halo, or bigger, or as big as Star Wars. Perhaps that's inflammatory. I should up there, right? Up there.
Bungie, like even if you don't play it, there's no denying how big Destiny is as like a brand.
Right. And the potential to tell stories either big in film fashion or silver screen style. Think The Mandalorian sized, where you're telling a smaller story within a much larger world. There's a lot to be had. And if you shop that around to different streaming distribution partners who are in their own content war, there's a lot of money to be made there. And I expect them to use that to its fullest, much the way they're trying to figure out how to use Spider-Man. MCU, not MCU, have its own connected universe, and some of it's working, some of it's not. But Sony did a good job in acquiring a brand that has a lot of stories that can be told, and told in a lot of ways. And we've seen Sony experiment with storytelling by way of shows before. They had a really great show that did not catch because it was such a narrow band, but a show called Powers. Very well acted, very well done. That was kind of this idea that they want a film and TV presence with some of their properties. I would love to see that Destiny show on a level and budget of The Mandalorian on a streaming service, and that will only be good for Sony. I don't think they overpaid. I don't think they overpaid at all. I think it's silly to think that you have a games of service that's going to be multi-platform and generate revenue in so many places, PC, console, and otherwise. Who knows what they do in the mobile market? And before anyone cringes at that, consider that Fortnite and Call of Duty both have their own mobile. And they're good. Like they're legitimately good, playable versions of those games. Um, who knows what happens there? I don't think they overpaid. I think it's silly to suggest otherwise in a world where 70 billion paid for Activision, and you got a lot more with that, but you also got a lot more baggage with that. Microsoft is going to have to weed out so much stuff, so many things, and I will applaud Sony 10 times over for the clarity and the openness that they've discussed with Bungie. I will applaud them for how uh, well they've been supportive of the messaging, and
Yeah.
there's no doubt about certain things. And part of the reason I don't think we have that with Activision is a lot of the legal things going on.
They
You know what
don't.
I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
they don't
can't,
even know
yeah,
what it looks like, really.
and they can't say some things because of investigations in California. But I love the 1.2 billion dedicated to employee retention. I think more and more now it's becoming evident that you must treat treat people within your company well, lest you get outed. I mean, Lord knows that Activision, EA, and Ubisoft are under the gun right now, and that is a good thing. We want people to be treated well and to make our games under conditions that are supportive. And I think uh, they're putting monies in the right spots. 3.6 doesn't sound like a lot 2 weeks after the 70 billion. Who
No,
knows?
by comparison, it's a relatively small amount, and I'm kind of on the same page. I don't necessarily think that Sony inherently overpaid. I think the 1.2 billion is a very interesting kind of wrinkle in this, in the fact that
Mm.
I'm sure there are a lot of people within Bungie who do not want to be acquired by someone, because we've seen it
Sure.
time and time again where they were with Microsoft, they broke free. You hear the stories of them popping champagne when they got their
Right.
independence. Activision, they had a miserable experience with Activision and publishing Bungie publishing Destiny through Activision, and like ruined their plan, and had to like use Destiny 2 as the platform instead of Destiny 1. And when they broke free from Activision, they also popped champagne and celebrated. So for them to so quickly go back to a big parent company, I have to imagine there's people within Bungie who don't want this. And
Right.
there's probably a lot of brass at Bungie who have to sell the people on this idea. And this retention fund is probably to show the people working at Bungie that this is good for them, because this really isn't necessarily about established IP as it is. Like obviously Destiny is huge. This is about the future potential of what they can do in the games as a service space. And so if everyone leaves, if you buy Bungie and a bunch of people are like, I didn't sign up for this isn't what I wanted, and they leave, the value of that acquisition dwindles significantly, because this is about their expertise, this is about their experience, this is about their knowledge. So you need the people. You absolutely need the people. This isn't just buying a publisher for the sake of IPs and brand power. That's not primarily what this is for Sony. This is about leveraging that experience, and I think that's why the 1.2 billion to me isn't shocking, isn't surprising, because you got to sweeten the pot for the people working there. And I guarantee there are people working at Bungie who are not 100% on board with this.
Two more thoughts come to mind is that Sony significantly underpaid when they got Insomniac, right? It was like 223 million.
Yeah, by comparison, that is a steal. That is a
Right.
steal.
Right. And then the other part, and this sounds hostile, but it doesn't, like, to any, I call them keyboard warriors, but to people that are investing themselves and making this an argument point between two companies, and like the Sony versus Microsoft is the traditional like rah, rah, rah. Not our problem, not our problem. It's not something I need to worry about. It's not something I need to stress about. It sounds to me like nothing's going to be affecting me as a gamer. I'm not a Destiny player, but it sounds like as a Destiny player, I wouldn't be impacted by this, whether they overpaid or underpaid. It's a fun talking point, but at the end of the day, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. I'm still gonna get to play Destiny if I want to play that.
Yeah. It's funny to have people talk about it. For me, I sit on the sidelines. I watch all these companies spend 70 billion, 3.6 billion, just dumping money on video games, and I'm over here like trying to buy a house that isn't $1 million. I'm out here
Yeah.
on the streets just being like, dog, just if you could just give me like $1 million, I could get a
Mhm.
mediocre house.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the world that we live in. So some people get to throw around 70 billion, and then the rest of us are out here just on the sidelines saying, oh, you overpaid. You overpaid for Bungie. 3.6
I'm a,
billion?
te-
I've
I'm a teacher. At the beginning of a month, I eat good. The end of the month, we got some ramen, boo.
because
Got
what's up?
ramen?
We'll throw an egg in there. We'll make it fancy. You know what I'm
There we
saying?
go. Yeah,
Yeah,
there we go.
you know what's.
Sprinkle some parsley on there. There we
Ooh,
go.
parsley. Oh, dang.
Yeah,
You getting wild with it.
baller.
You've made some
I did.
ramen in your day, boy.
Yeah, let me tell you.
All right. So now that we've talked about, a confirmed acquisition and the big acquisition of last week, we got to talk about what's next. Because,
Oh yeah.
the speculation it just continues to ramp. And then it's amplified when you have folks like Jeff Keighley and my good pal Jeff Grubb come out and say that, yeah, I've heard that there's going to be more acquisitions. I'm hearing that
Mhm.
there will be more acquisitions. We don't know what that looks like, who it is, but basically these people are saying that folks like PlayStation and Xbox have billions of dollars that they need to spend in a certain period of time. I'm hearing figures thrown around that PlayStation needs to spend another 10 billion, and I'm hearing figures that Microsoft needs to spend another 50 billion. And that's again, we were just talking about money being thrown around, and imagine being in a position where you have to spend 50 billion. Like
Mhm.
imagine that, like that sort of
I
luxury.
I can't speak for you, Miles, but I can speak for me in saying that the Xbox expansion pass is open to acquisition for any number of things. If you want to acquire my podcast, I need to eat. So,
So
you know,
I've
just
already
throwing
thrown the
that
gun.
out.
I already told Xbox 1 billion. You can acquire me, as an individual. I don't know what that looks like, what you'll want, but $1 billion, and that's it. You can put me under your Xbox banner.
Whoever you're talking to, Miles, let me just talk to them as well. For 1 million less than that, I'm available to
Oh,
you.
come on. Don't you Price is Right me, dude. Not
I will
here.
undercut the market.
Don't you do it to me, man. And then to further add to the speculation and the heat of all of this, it came out that Saudi Arabia, the country of Saudi Arabia, put $1 billion into Capcom and Nexon. So there's companies, or there's
I
people out.
legit never heard that. Are you serious?
Yes, there are people completely outside of the video game industry. Now countries are investing in video game publishers because they see there's money to be made. So it's the Wild West right now. There's so much money being thrown around, and there's going to be more money thrown around. So what I want to do here, it's a little bit different, and we're going to have some fun. So you and I
Okay.
are going to role play as executives within Xbox, and we have carte blanche to spend $50 billion.
Okay.
So we are in the position to buy publishers. We have $50 billion. Who are you picking up the phone and calling?
WB. WB.
WB. What's your
WB.
offer? What do you offer in WB? You got 50 billion to spend. Let's see how you allocate these funds.
My opening bid is 25 with an option to 30, depending on some things. Now, a lot of people will say the value in WB is IP, and they are correct. WB does not own most of their IP, but you get Mortal Kombat in there. We talked about a fighter deficit. We talked about transmedia. There's possibilities with Mortal Kombat to go with, but you also get the talent of Rocksteady, the talent of WB Montreal, the talent of Telltale, not Telltale. I'm sorry, Traveler's Tales. Traveler's Tales. You get a lot of talent of making a myriad of games. So WB is who I want, and then I use that negotiation with Warner Brothers to say, hey, we can still keep putting Arkham or Batman or whatever multi-platform. That's fine. Think of Bungie style, right there. Bungie style. The only caveat, of course, is that Game Pass subscribers only get the Batman Beyond skins. Easy, right there.
Ooh,
It's
okay.
mean, right? It's just mean.
Just that little
Just mean.
that
No,
Game Pass Ultimate perk, the little Batman
that's right.
Beyond skin.
Batman
Okay.
Batman Beyond belongs to everybody. I don't like when heroes go exclusive. But yeah, WB is the one that I think makes sense. Am I going for my whole myriad here, or just like the one publisher?
Yeah, you got 50 billion. So
Okay.
what else you got there?
So that's the publisher that I'm talking to. If it's on the table, I want Crystal Dynamics as a studio. that on the table? Can I keep playing this game
Yeah,
that way? Okay.
you carte blanche. This is a
Yeah.
fantasy where you got 50 billion to spend. You
All
can
right.
spend it however you want.
So I'm rescuing Crystal Dynamics from Square Enix, who I think has done a really bad job over the last few years. They basically belong to Sony anyway, with all the flirting they do, uh, and that's fine. But Crystal Dynamics is working closely with the initiative now. We know they're frustrated with their lack of Square Enix support on Avengers. They've had a lot of problems there. I'm an Avengers player. Please don't hate me in the comments, but 7 or 8 of us really love that game.
Yeah, there's
And
a dozen of us out here, vocal
yeah,
Avengers
there are
fans.
literally dozens of us. And the end game is good. The campaign is solid, and the middle in between is really not. But that game has like 6 people working on it, and we know that those people aren't happy because they're not being supported. Their team was nerfed. I'm gonna rescue them from that, whether they keep making Avengers or not. But I'm gonna rescue Crystal Dynamics for sure. And from there, I don't know, Miles. Like WB and Crystal are the two that always come to my mind because WB brings not a lot of they bring a lot of talented studios. Those are the ones that I want to enter into the Xbox game studio realm. Where do you think? Where am I missing?
Yeah,
I'm missing something.
I've had this power fantasy where, Phil and I are sitting in a boardroom going over the numbers, talking about who we're scooping up for Xbox Game Studios here.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going for a big publisher, number one pick for me, and I've talked about this countless times, Capcom. Capcom is the person, if I'm Phil Spencer, I'm calling Capcom every single day. And I'm saying, hey,
Mm-hmm.
what's up? What are you working on? What's new? Capcom, I think we know their value it's under 10 billion right now. Obviously, you got to sweeten that pot a little bit to get them excited about it. I would offer Capcom 15 billion. 15 billion
Okay.
gets Capcom under Xbox Game Studios banner. You get so many incredible IP, you get some amazingly talented development studios, and that would be such a humongous get for Xbox Game Pass. Having
Mm-hmm.
Monster Hunter, Street Fighter, Devil May Cry, Mega Man, all these
Oh, yeah.
legacy franchises in Xbox Game Pass. Ooh, mama, that's a move. That's a power play. I think, if
Which game are you
PlayStation,
bringing back though? Which one are you bringing back? You bringing back Mega Man Legends? What are you bringing
I'm bringing
back to
back
win the fans?
Mega Man X reboot. Mega
Okay.
Man X, going back to basics, revisiting Mega Man X and making it
Okay.
this badass. I would say if I'm doing my dream Mega Man X, it would be like a 3D modern take on a Metroidvania. Like that's kind of
Okay. All right.
more fluid, more open world. You can kind of pick and choose when you tackle the enemies to get powers, but oof, yeah, that's what I'm bringing back. So
Like it.
15 billion for Capcom. Konami.
Mhm.
I'm calling Konami to save them from themselves because Konami is just absolutely nosediving every single thing that they own. They have no interest in making really good games right now. There's talks that a Silent Hill that could be decent will get revealed, maybe 2 of them. So maybe behind the scenes they're working on some stuff that makes them more exciting. But I know their value overall isn't very high.
Yeah, Miles, they're making NFTs now, so Konami's got money.
No, what they have is speculative money.
Oh,
What
got
Konami
it.
has is maybe down the road they will have money. That's the
Maybe.
beauty of NFTs is it can be worth
Mm,
50 cents or it can be worth infinity dollars. So
it's true.
that's the beauty.
True.
And if you're an investor and you hear the number infinity, let's go. If I can make unlimited money on terrible animated Castlevania gifts that people are buying for hundreds of dollars, then come on, dude. Easy. Why make video games when you can do nothing and make money? That's what I want to know.
Oh,
So,
at this point, like you made so much sense. It's like, what have I not been doing my whole life?
yeah, exactly. So, I'm offering Konami 8 billion, just way overpaying just to be like, please, we
Mhm.
just want to make a new Castlevania. We just want to make a new
Mhm.
Silent Hill, and we want you to
Okay.
go. We want everyone involved in the upper level of Konami to be gone. Just please leave the video game industry. We don't need you here. You're not helping. And anyone, I don't care if PlayStation buys it, cool. Anyone, literally anyone, please, someone come in and buy Konami for the love of God. They are so frustrating. As someone who grew up
Mhm.
playing Turtles in Time, Silent Hill, Castlevania, all these amazing beloved Sunset Riders. Like Konami was so good for so long, and those days are gone, long gone. So I would come in, try to rescue Konami from itself. Um,
Are we buying Sega? Are we buying Sega?
People want it, and
People
sure,
do
I'll,
want
I'll
it.
throw it just for somebody else. Like for me, Sega's. I'll give Sega 2 billion. That's all I'm paying.
Okay.
If Sega wants more than 2 billion, then nah, that's gonna be
Okay.
a no from me, dog. But I'll
Okay.
offer them 2 billion.
What about IOI?
IO Interactive, yeah. That is an interesting one because of the kind of current relationship that they have with Xbox. There's Project Dragon, which they're developing under Xbox Game Studios Publishing.
Mhm.
There's a world where that happens in actuality. I don't know what that looks like in terms of what you would pay for that developer. Um, do you pay a couple billion? Do you pay 1 billion? I mean, we got to remember Minecraft. Minecraft was only $1 billion. Mojang, they bought Mojang for $1 billion. That was a steal. That was an
Yeah.
absolute bargain. So, how much is IOI? IOI is not, I don't think, on the same level of Minecraft.
They're not, but they do own the Hitman IP.
500
That
mil?
is the,
500 milli? Is that fair?
no, we're using Microsoft money. We're overpaying for everything. I'll give them
Okay,
a billion.
1 billion. No,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Give them a
one
billion.
1 billion.
Dedicate some stuff to player or to developer retention, of course.
Yeah.
We want that, but yeah, absolutely. Bring them in. Bring them in. Make me some more Hitman games. Make me something like Hitman. And transmedia all of it. You know what I mean? I want a new Hitman show.
Yeah, let's do it. Get
Paramount
Timothy
Plus.
Oliphant back in the mix. You know what I'm saying?
He was good, right?
I'd
That
love
was a better
Timothy
movie than
Oliphant.
it
Just
should have
a
been.
American treasure, dude. God. Okay. And then outside of publishers, there is a developer that I'm swooning over, and people
Mhm.
probably already know, but it's From Software. So I know Phil's been putting in the legwork, building that relationship with From, flying out to Japan, seeing what they're working on. And I'm talking to From and saying, what is your dream? What is your vision? And how do we be a part of that? Even if it's like a Bungie thing where
Mhm.
previously I think From Software has been burned with exclusive deals, and they have been burned with losing the rights to their IP. So one of the reasons that Sekiro was called Sekiro and not Tenchu was because it started as a Tenchu reboot, and that's why it's published through Activision. But the stipulation was that From Software owns the rights to the IP. So From
Mhm.
Software wants to ensure ownership because of things with like Demon Souls and Bloodborne. There's a lot of like rights issues that get lost, and I think they've been kind of burned on that. So even if From Software looks like a Destin or a Bungie type deal where they say we
Sure.
are an independent publisher under your banner, I'm
Mhm.
making that deal because that studio has garnered such an incredible cult following, and their games just continue to be critically acclaimed, sell well, and they're one of the most consistent developers in the modern space right now, and that carries a lot of weight. So even if the games aren't your cup of tea, because I know they're not for everyone, that still has so much weight when you're talking about gamer cred. When you're talking about
Mhm.
hardcore gamer cred, From Software
Right.
has that in spades. So that's kind of what I don't what I'd give him a couple bill. Give him 5 billion.
Yeah.
5 billion.
Give it to them and see what it is they want as a studio. I think that you'd buy a lot of player allegiance if you were to bring them in. You'd certainly anger some people, but just tell them to put it on easy and they can do it. I really think that's a good one, and I'll tell you why. I am not good at these games. My frenemy, Mr. Badbit, often he and I have a lot of talks about this. It's 2 shout outs in one show. It's too much. It's
I
too
know
much.
it's too much. Ew, stop
I
it.
don't like it.
Stop it.
I feel gross, honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm disappointed.
he I feel bad. I know. I regret it. He and I often talk about like where those games stand in the pantheon of greater gamerness, but I'm seeing an energy around From Software due to Elden Ring that I've not seen around any of their other games, and they're all quality. All of their games are top tier. They've not made a bad game yet, at all. Their games may not appeal to everyone, but it seems like more and more people are interested in Elden Ring in a way that really ups the value of that studio. And to your point, if you are looking at purchasing or partnering, it looks like Elden Ring is going to be the one that widens their spectrum and their reach well beyond what Demon Souls, Dark Souls,
Yes.
and any of the others ones have done. And I'm there for it. I'm there to watch it. I'm not good enough to play it, but I'm there to watch it, and I'm excited by it, even though I'm not good enough at their games, and that's their vision. They can make the game they want, and I am not required to purchase it nor go complain about it or anything else. Make the game you guys want to make. I'll play something else, but it looks like that's the one that's going to bump them over the edge. So if you're going to buy From Software, Miles, you need to do it before Elden Ring launches. Otherwise, the cost goes up.
Yeah, because again, people are saying that, you know, Elden Ring's niche, From Software games are niche, but if you look at how that game's trending with pre-orders, ooh, it's gonna destroy a lot of RPG. We're talking about RPG specifically. That is going to outsell a lot of RPG. It's going to be a humongous game. I see Xbox Rules in here saying Sekiro was a bad game. And Xbox
game of the
Rules,
year.
I
What are you
love
talking
you,
about?
but that is a awful take. That is one of the worst takes I've seen in a long.
I'm not good at Sekiro. I tried. Like to say any game like that is a bad game when it's critically well received, sells very well, and receives all types of awards is short-sighted. And that stinks. You don't have to like it. It may not be your cup of tea. It may not be for you. You may not be good at it. Any number of reasons why it doesn't click for you. But when you see consumers and critics alike aligning on something, it's a bit foolish to say that something is bad. You know?
Sekiro is one of the rare times I would give a game a 10 out of 10. Sekiro is, it's not my favorite From Software game, but it might be their best work yet. That was kind of like a culmination of a lot of things that they learned from previous titles.
Sure.
And ooh, so we're gonna have we got one more big question I'm gonna ask you about acquisitions, but before we do that, I'm gonna give a quick shout out to the 212 amazing people joining us live. If you are digging this show, smash that like button, share it out, all that great stuff. I'm gonna get to some super chats real quick here. First and foremost, we have Kid Smooth, who says, publisher Sega or Bandai, otherwise by Square Enix Western Division, and Sony takes the Japanese division. Otherwise, Xbox should target IO Interactive, Crystal Dynamics, Techland, and Asobo. So Kid Smooth has got his acquisition wish list.
Oh, ready.
Yeah, it's ready to go. Ooh, and then he comes in with another one that would, this one gets me excited, Luke. Xbox buys Capcom and remakes Dead Rising on the RE engine.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty prospect.
Dead Rising. Oh, Dead Rising is the reason I bought a 360. Like playing Dead Rising for the first time, that blew my mind. I was so stoked on Dead Rising, and it's still like one of my favorite franchises, and one that does not get the love and support it deserves. So to see Dead Rising come back in that RE engine, he's got me feeling a certain way. And speaking of your frenemy here, Mr. Badbit says, I'm buying divorce papers for Luke's mom. Owned.
Hey, that's my mother. That's my mom.
Oh, Mr. Badbit coming in and insulting your mother on a live stream?
It's just, honestly,
he's a monster. He's a monster, dude.
I know what I just said about good games and critics and reception, but Bloodborne was pretty bad, right? Because like it would have a sequel if it was good, right?
Don't open that can of worms, dude. Bloodborne stands they're sensitive. They're very sensitive. They're not akin to any sort of logic or reasoning. They're I don't know. It's scary.
So let me rephrase. Let me say this. I hope Bloodborne 2 and 3 come out in the near future and that Joe can't play them.
Ooh,
I hope that's in the contract.
Yeah,
that's what I hope.
Okay. I like that. I agree. Let's make that the reality. Bloodborne 2 is going to be announced. Joe can't play it.
That's right.
Legally.
That's right. That's the rest of my buy From Software money. It's in the wording is that Joe can't play.
I will give them $15 billion to say Mr. Badbit cannot play Bloodborne 2 under any circumstances. He will be imprisoned for 15 to 25 years. But I don't know. Maybe that's too lenient. Maybe he'll take that risk. He'll say, you know what? 15 years in jail, I'll play Bloodborne 2.
He'd do it.
Super chat from you, Donnie here, who says, we know PlayStation has a cool approach where studios share tech and work together. We know they're going to do this with Bungie. When will Microsoft do this? You just mentioned Sea of Thieves. They could help 343. Fun fact, Xbox does have something like this. They have a huddle where Matt Booty basically brings all of the teams together and they show prototype builds of what they're working on. And so, yeah, they can absolutely share tech. That is a huge part of their future of Xbox Game Studios. And talking to people at Rare about this, everyone loves those meetings. Obviously, COVID has kind of thrown a wrench in it, but it was very much about bringing these teams together to see what they're working on, pull ideas from each other. So yes, that is something that Xbox does do, and you can expect that. Super chat from Harjeet Chani. Oh, hashtag put Elden Ring in Game Pass.
Would that help that franchise? I think it would.
Yes. It's an interesting thing where Elden Ring does not need quote unquote Game Pass, because the game will sell like gangbusters regardless. But what's interesting is there is a huge number of people who probably would never buy it, regardless. Ignoring all the hype, maybe they would love it, but they would never buy it. And that opens that door to them, where these people who, weren't going to buy it can check it out and maybe fall in love with From Software. So it doesn't really need it. It would be one of those just marketing only deals where they are literally just dumping a bunch of money in to say, we have a really cool game launching day and date in Xbox Game Pass. I don't, again, like, it would be humongous. It would be the biggest thing that Xbox Game Pass has ever done, but I don't know. I don't know if it will happen. I don't know if it needs to happen. I don't know if there's any interest on From Software side. I have a hard time believing that people like Phil and Xbox haven't reached out to say, hey, what's up? How you doing? Yeah. How's that February 25th looking, bro? You need a little engagement boost? What's up? So again, like, yeah, if I still have leftover money from my 50 billion, I'm throwing 500 milli their way for that day one Xbox Game Pass get. Just for the hype. That's all it is. That's all that is just publicity for Xbox Game Pass that says, hey, you can expect us to get some of the biggest games ever released day and date. And even if not everyone plays it, even if, you're giving From Software more than they would make on sales of the game, you still get to flex that weight. And I think there's some value there. But again,
they did that with Outriders last year, and you can say like the reception of Outriders after the fact.
But I would say that Outriders had way less hype than Elden Ring. Like, way.
Right, but what I mean to say is it was a statement to Game Pass subscribers. Hey, this is a big game for this window of time. You're getting it day and date. They did that with MLB and Outriders in that window, remember? That's what I was
True, yeah, absolutely. And that, again, that it was huge for the game, got more people playing. I see some folks in the chat who are saying that they're, not that interested in Elden Ring, but if it came to Xbox Game Pass, they would give it a shot. And I think that would be huge because there's Dark Souls as a franchise is forever tainted. As much as I love Dark Souls for what it is, what it does, so much of the conversation has become about the difficulty. That for a huge number of people, they associate it with difficulty. And I have people tell me all the time, I've never played one because I don't like hard video games. Or I've never played one because people tell me it's hard and things like that. And that's like, the difficulty aside, you're ignoring so many other incredible elements about this game, that this company who makes some of the best modern video game worlds, I think is really where From Software needs more credit than they get, is when it comes to creating a tone and a feeling and a place. There are few teams better than From Software, and that with Dark Souls specifically gets completely overshadowed by, oh, it's hard though. And again, it is hard. I'm not trying to downplay and say, oh, it's easy, because I see people say that it's easy, and it's like, shut up, stop. It's not that it's easy, and it's not that it's necessarily super hard. It's just that the memes and the people who champion Dark Souls simply because it was hard have kind of forever damaged that brand when it comes to widespread appeal. So I'm excited because Elden Ring seems like a fresh start. Like, you can obviously, if you like Dark Souls, you're gonna like Elden Ring, but it doesn't have that Dark Souls weight kind of pulling it down.
Sure. Good point.
So, okay, we're going to talk about just a few quick things here because we're coming towards the end. Luke, did you hear that Grand Theft Auto 6 is confirmed again?
I did see that. And I felt bad after I posted a snarky, like, the doubt meme from LA Noir. I posted like 4 pictures of that doubt meme, and it's like, all right, first of all, obviously it's coming, but like, what does that mean in Rockstar time? I don't know. They once told me I was getting expansions to the campaign of Grand Theft Auto, and it took a decade. I was like, I don't know. But I think it's cool, like neat, awesome. Grand Theft Auto is a money printer, and cheers to them. And Rockstar does support their games pretty darn well, so cool.
Cool. Yeah, it was one of those things where it kind of took off on social media this week, and I was
Mhm.
in the camp of people who were like, "Didn't we already know this? Like, this isn't new."
I thought that
But
too,
they
but I
tried to
just
like
want to
come out
roll
and
with
make
it.
it seem like it was a big announcement of sorts, and it was kind of baffling. But what I wanted to talk about with that kind of just quick aside here is franchises now like Grand Theft Auto, The Elder Scrolls, Fallout. Are we in the timeline where we only get one a decade? Is that the is that the future of these big massive franchises now? Because when we look at Grand Theft Auto, it's coming up on 10 years. When we look
Mhm.
at Elder Scrolls, it's been over 10 years. Is
Mhm.
is that is that the world we live in now?
I think it might be if you're considering the scope of what people want those games to be versus what it takes to make those games. It might be that you get one of those a decade on that level. And I mean, even Halo jumped onto this
That's
bandwagon of,
true.
all right, we're going to make
Absolutely.
the engine, and we're going to build and work within that, and within that only, and we're going to tell you stories within this game. I think you are kind of getting to that phase for the majority of them. I mean, Dying Light 2, they're going to have 5 years of content. Like that was what they said, and that's a smaller scale thing. But if they're saying and committing to 5 years, that's half the decade for a smaller game by a double A, top tier double A studio, or a low tier triple A, depending. I don't know. That's a moniker, but whatever. The reality is, yeah, I think you are getting to the one of those a decade, and it's a delivery platform, and I don't think that's a bad thing,
Yeah, I was going
Miles.
to ask what your kind of take on this was, because I've seen a lot of people say that Microsoft needs to shift to make sure that Fallout comes sooner and Elder Scrolls comes sooner, and that people don't want to wait 10 years, but it seems like Skyrim still sells. Seems like Skyrim still, there's data that shows it's one of the most played games like year over
Mhm.
year. So, do we need more than one Skyrim a decade or not?
I think Skyrim sells because it's moddable, and I think that's what people enjoy. I think the same can be said about GTA, and people enjoy the mods and playing around with it. But the people that want timelines pushed up, it seems like in cases of like Fallout, they had Fallout 76, which was a neat experiment, but everything seems to be Fallout 76 in the Fallout official channels. Fallout 4 was just more Fallout 3 with a slightly upresed visual set. And so, if you're going to make and redesign and really reinvigorate your franchise, it's going to be one of those tentpole once a decade games. If you're not going to redesign anything, then it's going to be a much shorter development cycle. But what made these games so special was how engaging they were to their audiences and how they made their audiences feel like they were within that world. We're at a point now where the technology demands so much of the creator to let the user feel like they are in that world
Mhm.
that it's going to take a long time to make it. And so you make a platform and you use the platform to deliver um, what it is you're bringing. I mean, I expect we're going to get some Halo Infinite news in a few months at E3 about the next story DLC. And that's going to be Halo Infinite colon this or
Halo
Halo colon this.
Infinite colon the return.
Yeah, yeah. I almost spoiled what I know. One of the colons is that they uh, whatever they got the patent, not the patent for
Yeah,
whatever
there
they
there is. Yeah,
trademarked.
if you
Yeah,
look, there is a patent for probably what that first
one probably
DLC
is
is. Yeah.
exactly. And so I paused myself and then stuttered my way through it. But yeah, yes, a very long-winded answer. Yes, 10 years. That's what's happening. Yes.
Yeah, it's I'm a little torn. Like, I guess it's not fundamentally bad.
Hmm.
We're in a world where people can iterate, they can add content, and we're again, we talk about the lizard brain and what people want. I think it's more valuable for some people to have a steady stream of content over years and years, as
Hmm.
opposed to that one big drop every, I don't know, 2-3 years. So
Right.
again, I guess I'm not really that upset as long as when it does hit, when the new Elder Scrolls hits, when the new Fallout hits, that it does what like Fallout 3 did for me. Like playing Fallout
Hmm.
3 for the first time, like having that experience that was so unlike anything I'd ever played. That if they can do that, I'll wait 10 years. I'll wait 10 years. I'll be, 50 years old by the time Fallout 5 comes out. But if it hits, I'll be there. I'll be there day one. Because I was in the camp that Fallout 4 wasn't what I wanted. Fallout 4 for me was, I didn't really necessarily want just more Fallout 3, because Fallout 3 is one of my favorite games of all time. But when Fallout 4 hit, it was not a magical feeling for me. I played for a good dozen hours and just moved on because it felt so similar. So similar. And again, I'm excited about Bethesda experimenting with new IPs like Starfield, and I'm excited for them experimenting with new engines for the Elder Scrolls 6 and probably Fallout 5. So it will take a long time, and Bethesda Softworks is only one studio in that web, and I think they're probably going to be the one studio that is doing those big mainline entries. And I think that means we're waiting, because we have to wait. By the time we get Fallout 5, we're going to have to wait for Starfield, and we're going to have to wait for Elder Scrolls 6, and then we're getting Fallout 5. So we got some waiting to do.
Big time.
And then final question, are you buying Grand Theft Auto 5 for the 5th time on March 14th?
No, I haven't bought that game in a while. I really loved playing. I played that on my PS3, and I think again on my PS4. But when I switched to Xbox One around the Series S, I haven't touched Grand Theft Auto since then. I've played that game, and I don't enjoy. That's not one I like going back to. That's not a well I enjoy returning to. Whereas there are other games I'd rather play. So I'm done with Call of Duty, with Grand Theft Auto for a good while.
Yeah, they got me the first time because I bought it on 360. Obviously, it was exciting. New Grand Theft Auto is always exciting. Got it on 360, and then when I got my Xbox One, it was one of the earlier releases. Was the Xbox One version of Grand Theft Auto. I was like, "Ooh, I want to try the shiny new Grand Theft Auto." And then I bought it and played it for like 5 hours, and I was like, "Man, I should not have spent $60 on that." I get the people love it. I'm not going to be paying for it yet again. If they gave me some free enhancements, I would absolutely boot it up for half an hour and say, "Oh, cool," and then move on with my life. But it's just funny to me that, like Skyrim, Grand Theft Auto just continues to grow and continues to be resold to us for $60.
The only old game I'm ready for the next gen or current gen port of is Witcher and Cyberpunk. Those are the only two. I want to see what they bring to the table. Will Cyberpunk be playable in a state that everyone can enjoy it? And Witcher 3, I'm on my second. I played it years ago. I'm playing it again now, and it's so good. I'd love to see what those next gen ports look like. But CD Projekt Red certainly lost my faith, and I think of CD Projekt Red's stuff in the same vein that I think of Grand Theft Auto. So we'll see.
Yeah, I tried The Witcher 3 for the first time on Xbox One X, and I enjoyed it. I had some fun. But it was around the time where we were getting used to like 60 FPS. We were coming up on the Series X. Like, I was really late to trying Witcher 3.
Sure.
So I put it down. I revisited it on the Series X when that dropped, and it plays so much better. But then as soon as I started playing it on the Series X, I heard that they were doing a full next-gen version of Witcher 3. And I was like, well, I'll just put it down and wait for that. So eventually, at some point down the road, I'm hoping to finish The Witcher 3. We'll see. I did beat Cyberpunk. I beat that at launch on the Series X. I will revisit Cyberpunk when that patch hits, because as much as I, didn't have a huge number of problems with Cyberpunk in terms of what the game was, it was rough. It was a rough launch. I had a lot of fun because I like glitches that are funny that don't break the game. So when NPCs were T-posing through cars, and when I would come into a room full of 20, 30 people and they would all be T-posing for a couple seconds, that was funny to me. I had a good laugh. It didn't break my immersion because I was just in it for the ride. For me, it was just a dumb popcorn video game that I was just enjoying for what it was. If you were someone who wanted the heavy story beats, you wanted the narrative to hit, stuff like that probably had an impact, I think.
Sure.
But
I want the side by side of the next gen version with the VCR Xbox One. I want those side by sides. I want to see it.
Yeah,
that's
what
I'm excited for.
Yeah. Oh, Potato Punk 2077, baby.
There you go.
So I'll give it another chance. And games like Cyberpunk and Battlefield kind of showcase that If a game needs more time, please give it more time. You're only hurting yourself if you put it out in a state that people are mad about, because people don't forget. There are people to this day who still say, I am never playing Cyberpunk. I don't care what the next gen version looks like, because of how bad that launch was. So, I get that people are impatient and you want to get the game out and you want to make some money, but come on now. Come on now.
Agree.
All right, Luke, we're at 2 hours, so we are going to wrap this thing up. Huge shout out to everyone who tuned in, who hung out with us. Appreciate you guys. Luke, for all the people who joined us today, where can they get a hold of you?
Well, it was an honor to join you, Miles, and I appreciate you inviting me to be on. You're one of my favorite people around, and so I appreciate you. And to any listener who enjoyed my takes or my thoughts, this is pretty much how I talk over on the Xbox Expansion Pass. And XEP is on all your podcast services. It's also on YouTube. If you want the audio with the static image, it's there, and you can subscribe and like and share and support your creators. It means a lot to us when you guys do those things, those ratings. But yeah, I would love for anyone to check out the Xbox Expansion Pass, and you can find me on Twitter at InsipidGhost, and it would mean the world to know that Miles helped you connect to me. That's a really cool feeling. So yeah,
Luke, love having you on. Again, one of my favorite dudes to sit down and talk with. It's been a little while. I'm glad we could power through some of the earlier technical difficulties, slam the show out. And again, huge shout out to everyone's tuning in live and to the people listening after the fact on audio services. If you dug the show, rate it, follow it, all that good stuff. And we will be back next week with Xbox Chaturdays. Have an excellent weekend, everybody.